Okay, and we're recording once again without warning. How are you doing, Ken?
No warning. I'm a little tired, but I'm doing good. Can't complain.
Yeah.
A little tired.
You always look tired.
People ask me about that. It's like, how come your eyes don't look open? I'm like, well, that's the way I was born. And my children seem to have the same eye thing, you know?
That's my face, okay?
It's my face.
It's my face.
I can clearly, people ask, can you see though? I'm like, I can clearly see everything. I'm like, my eyes just look shut. And when I smile, they look like they're completely closed. And I smile a lot.
What an ignorant question. Can you see? Really quickly, when I was a little kid, I was playing in the sandbox. A little girl, I got my glasses knocked off and I'm looking for my glasses, you know. A little girl, she said, what did she say? She's like, can you see without your glasses? And I kind of, snapped at her a little bit at a very young age. And it's like, no, what do you think? Help me look for my glasses.
And she kicks them. Fine, be rude.
Anyway, welcome to product. I can't read what's on the teleprompter because I don't have my glasses. Welcome to Products of Circumstances, new podcast with Ken, Skeen, and myself, Fenton, Joseph. We discuss mental health and mindset matters through the lens of Black men. We cover topics like family and relationship trauma, relationships with money, self-worth, positive thinking, stop laughing, gratefulness, and so much more. This show is unscripted, clearly unfiltered, and mostly unedited. We choose our topics randomly, and Ken's going to tell us what we're talking about today. But first, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and most of all, share with somebody that's on their own personal development journey. All right, Ken, what are we talking about today?
All right, so discussion of the day, not to sour the mood, but it has to be discussed on it because I had a conversation with someone close to me, and we're talking about mental depression and how it can affect. So, I mean, you don't know who around you is depressed. Sometimes they don't want to share it. They always smile a lot, or they tell you everything's all right, everything's okay, don't worry, I'm good. And then once in a while, that person, or yourself, maybe yourself, I've been depressed before, a human being. All of a sudden something snaps, and then you're, in your room crying or, thinking of other things to maybe harm yourself. And you don't want that. And people, look, I'm not a therapist, but sometimes you just need someone to have an open ear to just listen to problems sometimes. Because listen, talking it out is some of the best things you can do. Fenton and I do it a lot. The reason we started this podcast, these are the same conversations we would have on the phone. And we just decided to put a camera, and so we can, maybe someone hears what we have to say and can relate and can understand that there's others out there that, have the same kind of stresses or happiness or whatever may be in their lives. But depression is a real thing. It affects many people. Don't think it's not a rich thing, not a poor thing, not a black, not a white, not a religion. It is. All right. Once in a while, check up on the people you love. Ask them, are you okay? But then ask them again, no, are you really okay? You'd be surprised if you ask someone 2 or 3 times, are you okay? And they finally break down and say, no, I'm not. Can we talk? And don't ask that question unless you're really willing to sit down and listen to them. If you're asking it just to say, hey, how's your day going? Let it be. But for people you love, maybe again, yourself. I've been in the boat before where I was, depressed about something. And one of the people I go to first is my wife. I go to my spouse, and awesome. That's my best friend. So I'll talk to her. Other times, my dad's always been there for me, along with my many friends, and not many, so a small circle of friends actually that I can trust to, express my, I don't want to say problems, but express my emotions to. Fenton being one of them, of course. and maybe a handful of others. That includes family or friends. Only a handful of people will I express my emotion to. Some people don't want to hear it. They have their own stresses in life. Other people will actually celebrate your depression, believe it or not, behind your back,
Wow.
or celebrate your losses. It's true. No one wants to talk about it, right? Sometimes your best friends or even your family will, and secretly say, "Yeah, good, they have problems." That's not helpful.
It's true. It's true.
But yeah, when it comes to depression, it needs to be talked about more. People need to speak more. There are, if you don't, Fenton and I were on a like a Zoom call once for this gentleman. I'm sure if anyone will put his name out, but he was talking about just men and the depression and mental stress.
Drew Delaney.
Drew, yes, great guy. But he was talking, when it comes to men, especially, it seems like we don't look for an outlet. Taught to man up. Mm-hmm. But if you don't get that the relief of speaking, like what's hurting or what the problem is or problems, you may hurt yourself one day. You hear about the suicide rates with men. They're very high suicide rates when it comes to actually going through with it. But that's men not talking to anyone, to someone, because they're scared of how they'll be seen as weak, maybe. This comes to women as well, but I'm not leaving you out of this. It seems like it's easier for women to talk to each other. That's why the suicide rates are lower for women. But at the same time, you have women that don't want to share their emotions because they feel like they're a burden. And I guess that's just people in general. People don't want to burden someone else with their problems. But if someone truly loves you, they'll listen to you. It's not saying it's a quick fix, but at least you can release some of that stress, which is a big deal. It's a huge deal. Again, I'm fortunate to have someone like my wife in my corner that will hear me out when I am down, or if something's truly bothering me and I haven't, spoke about it, or writing it down doesn't help, or just a discussion like this. These podcasts help me some days when I just need to just speak. So that's a big deal. But, yeah,
Man, you said a lot.
Yeah, my bad. I just ranted just now.
No, that was a lot. There's a lot of really good stuff that you said. First, I want to start out by saying I'm not a mental, I'm not a depression expert or anything like that. I don't believe that I've ever experienced depression in my lifetime. And so I particularly feel ill-equipped to speak about it from a first-person perspective. But I do know people that have experienced depression, and those people were close to me. And so I've seen the effects of depression on other people. And that is something that I can speak about firsthand. I just want to say that there are many experts out there and really amazing resources, and maybe even other podcasts or YouTube channels that you could go to, to get, like really great information. We're going to talk about our experiences, our lived experiences. And so with that being out of the way, my little disclaimer, talking to people is really hard. And I think I like the fact that you said sometimes you got to ask people 2-3 times, or however many times it is, are you okay? I agree with you. I have found that people will, if you keep asking them, that they will eventually, and I don't mean like in like an annoying way. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're close to somebody, you kind of know when something's off. And we're not talking about like some coworker that you don't really know like that, and you keep badgering them like, but Phil, are you good, man? Phil, I just want you to know you can talk to me anytime. Hey, man, listen, you stop by my desk, like Phil might punch you, but I'm talking about, people that are close to you and they're hurting, and you want to be there for them, and maybe they won't open up that first time, but the best thing you could do is just to avail yourself. And, when they do, talk to you, listen. Some people want to fix everything. Here's what I know about depression, because I had an ex that was depressed, like clinically depressed. you're not going to change their perspective on things. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of like chuckling about it. I could chuckle about it many years later because I wasn't chuckling about it at the time. It actually like partly caused me to become a functioning alcoholic. But you're not going to change their perspective on things. Like there's something chemical going on up there. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a brain thing. It's not just a bad attitude or, woe is me because I just snap out of it. Depression's not a snap out of it kind of thing. I thought it was until I experienced it firsthand and realized like, no, something is actually off. And, what I learned was that, you really just kind of have to be there for people and be willing to persevere and go on that journey with them. You said something that was really important. It's like, all right, if you ask somebody like, how are you doing? Like, make sure you have the time.
Right.
Don't be trying to get all deep.
You got this thing.
You got a doctor's appointment to go to.
I got a thing.
Don't ask a depressed person how it's going if you don't have time for the answers, dog. Because you're gonna get an earful. And that's, being a friend. And in my world, like, that's ministry. Like I've dealt with people who I've been there for them when it was not convenient for me, but I knew that I was being a friend and that I was serving them as they were going through their journey and their thing. Make time. And honestly, if you don't have time to be that type of friend or hopefully you have the time to be that type of spouse, but that's a whole other episode. But you may want to tread lightly because this is, in my experience, this is like their world and it colors how they see everything. And so it's not the type of thing where you can just, bounce in and out of somebody's, life when they're going through this stuff and think that you're going to be effective, in helping them or being a good friend. You really got to be consistent, when you're dealing with people that have depression and are going through these things. I'm going to flip, go to a different direction real quick. Because I talked about an ex that was depressed. One of the things that was really challenging for me was not acknowledging that there was something deeper than just you have a victim mentality, a woe is me mentality. Everything's just always, negative. Because I'm like a supremely, perpetually optimistic person. So in dealing with her, who at the time, what she was dealing with, everything was just negative and the whole world was just like upside down. Those things were warring with one another. And what I found in hindsight was, again, there just needed to be more grace. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to have grace for people. It's not, I'm speaking to people who aren't going through depression, but are dealing with people who, or interacting with people who are depressed. You have to have grace because unless you've experienced it, you're just not going to have that empathy. So it's better to like err on the side of like overdoing it in terms of patience and grace. Just give as much as you can. Because you're never going to know what's going to trigger them, in any given moment.
That's true. That triggering someone, you don't even know. You don't even know.
I just remember, I think I've told this story before, and I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I just remember, going somewhere and there was a certain situation. It's like you thought it would make the person happy. Instead, they started bawling, crying. I'm like, what is the problem? And it's like, well, I'm never going to have that. I'm never going to be able to do this. And it's like, I see possibility. You see negativity and no hope. And I just realized like our worldview is just very, very different. Anyway, let it suffice to say that, it is real, even if you don't think that it is. And, perception trumps reality, so it's really, it's really not cool to tell somebody who's struggling to just get over it, snap out of it. I think that's probably where I'm going to sum up. And, that's my perspective on depression right now.
Yeah, it's all right, so let's say with a trigger, which it took some time, but my wife and I were, trying for another kid on top of the clan we have now, the soccer team we're building. But we had two miscarriages. So that definitely, I know the second one put me in a slight depression. So I understood what depression was. Um, Even when we had loss in family, specific family members that, were lost, way earlier than they should have been. Those were small depressions I personally was in my life. I'm not putting the names out there, but I had a cousin that was, murdered, and it put me in a slight depression. But I had, thankfully, the people in my life I was able to talk to. Not everyone has that, or sometimes people don't feel they have it, because they choose not to connect with the family or friends they have. Sometimes they need to go talk to the stranger.
Like you said, like maybe there is somebody that they could be talking to in their circle, but they don't.
They don't know if they're going to be burdened, like be seen as a burden, to that person. Like, there may be someone in your life right now, a niece, a cousin, a brother, that may be going through something, but they feel, well, maybe Fenton doesn't want to hear what I have to say because I don't feel like I don't want to be a burden on him. That's why I say sometimes you should ask people. I keep getting away from the mic. Sometimes you should just ask some people in your life, hey, do you want to talk? Do you need to talk about anything? Are you really okay? Is everything all right? If you really love them, why not? I'm not sure how big the audience listening to circle is in your life, but the older I get, my circle gets smaller. So I don't need to ask too many people.
I don't cut across you, but there were two people, one of them is a family member and the other one's a good friend. And recently I found out they were going through things. And I didn't ask the question, like, how come you didn't say anything? But I was a little surprised, I guess, that, they didn't reach out, but in whatever way it came out, I was happy because now I can check in, and be intentional about it, and one of them, checking, usually all the time anyway, but no, I didn't realize that there was something going on, man. It's like this stuff could be going on right underneath your nose and you just don't know. All right, switching gears again. By the way, that miscarriage stuff is super real. Like we experienced that as well. And to this day, if like I talk about it, like I will start crying. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll just start crying, because that's like a type of like grief, that's just really difficult to process. And I think, let me ask you a question before I go to what I was going to say. When we talk to people, I think it helps us to process stuff in maybe like a way that we're not able to. And I'm wondering, like, is that the case for you? Like when you experience loss and you talk to people, is it helpful for you to talk because you're not able to figure out what to do with these feelings on your own?
Yes, that's exactly right. It helps unlock, I guess, different pathways in your brain of, it's okay. You know what? Sometimes you need to hear it from someone else. I don't care how strong you think you are mentally and physically. Look, sometimes you need people to tell you it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to have those feelings. But I feel that does help with the journey. Again, I'm not a therapist. I'm not licensed in any of this. I'm talking my personal. It definitely helps the journey of you getting to a better place in your mind of, it is okay. The world does move on. Do I get sad when I think about it? Yeah, I get sad, but the depression is gone. It was short-lived. Like the depression part of it was, it was a couple months, but I was in that place and I didn't even know it until I talked to someone about it. And that's when I knew. So some people could be in a like depressed place in their mind and not even know it until they speak to someone that unlocks it and says, well, here you go. Giddy up.
I'm so glad that you said that because that segues into what I wanted to say. which is that I hold a personal belief, Fenton, that black people are, there's so many of us who are probably walking around here who are clinically depressed just because we are black, just being black. You can't even say being black in America because you get the same experience everywhere. It's like, it doesn't matter what continent you're on. You know, like there's this fallacy that, you know, black people in America, you know, like America's like the worst of the worst. Like, I'm sorry, like they brought this stuff over here from other countries. You know what I'm saying? Like America's, you know, there were Europeans that came over here and you know, the amount of every country that was in the world that was like populated by white people basically has been, you know, has had a hand, you know, in the participation of the oppression of black people. And so anyway, all that to say, just being black has a lot of weight to it. You know, class is another thing, right? Like in the hood, it's clear. Like if you ever spent any time in the hood, people, if you've never spent any time in the hood, go spend some time in the hood. All right. You're hood adjacent. All right. Somewhere near you, there is a hood because there's hoods everywhere. All right. There's hoods in the Hamptons. You know what I'm saying? Like I live
just make sure you get a pass, please.
Yo, you ain't getting no pass. You ain't
just
getting
for the
no
day.
pass.
Get like a 12-hour pass before you go to the hood.
All right. You know what? All right. Everybody listening to our gift to you. All right. Since it's the holidays, our gift to you is a hood pass, a 24-hour hood pass. So you can go and experience just for a little bit what it's like to be in a hood. Like when you're, and I'm, you know, mind you, let's be super clear. I didn't grow up in the hood, but I spent time in the hood, and I got family in the hood. And you know, when you live in that environment, I mean, it's a lot to deal with. Things are very bleak. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not a lot of hope. There's not a lot of resources. There's not a lot of access to things to, you know, to help yourself and your family. And it's amazing to me how anyone can look at somebody in those circumstances and not understand how they could be moved to take certain actions or behave certain ways or have certain viewpoints about life, you know, have a certain worldview. I'll never forget, because like I was saying, I live in a pretty affluent neighborhood, right? I live in Westchester, New York, and I live in a pretty affluent town. And I'll never forget, I was riding my bike and I went down to this, it was like a country club down by the water. And I mean, the houses are just absolutely insane. It's probably like 6,000 square foot houses, that type of thing, like really huge. And it was like a Tuesday, bro. It was like 10 in the morning and I'm riding my bike and I'm like, look at these people driving by in like their Range Rovers and stuff. And it's like, they have no concept of what it is to struggle. Not everyone. And people, do we really have to qualify every single statement? Come on, use your brains. There's plenty of people who got money that didn't always have money and they came up in a struggle. But we're talking about the ones that didn't. I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying, silver spoon, privilege, whatever. And I'm saying like they don't have an idea of what it is to struggle, to not have, to lack, and to not be able to do what you want to do on your terms. And there was something about that day. The look on people's faces just made me realize like they're so disconnected, you know, from other people's reality. And that's the way our society is set up, that you can be disconnected, that you can be in a bubble and not have to experience those things. And you could do, I don't know, like a turkey giveaway or go to the soup kitchen, you know what I'm saying, on Thanksgiving and feel like, you know, like you're amongst the people or whatever. Anyway, stay with me. I'm going somewhere. My point is that, you know, even in places like this, you know, like there's hoods nearby. And if you go there and you spend time and you realize like what people are dealing with, I just think it's just fascinating that there's this narrative that Black people and minorities in lower socioeconomic strata are just like, well, why don't they just get it together? That's where the hood pass thing comes. Like, go to the hood and you'll understand what your mentality changes, dog. You know what I'm saying? Like I've spent enough time in the hood, and I've lived, in some places where my mentality changed. Am I delayed right now?
A little bit.
That's cool. I'm gonna keep talking.
Keep talking.
I grew up upper middle class in Long Island. I grew up in an all-white neighborhood. I went to a school that was mostly black kids. And for all intents and purposes, we lived pretty well. Vacations every year and, 2 cars, 3 cars in the driveway, whatever. We didn't really lack anything. As I went on later in life, I put myself in some situations. Yeah, it wasn't exactly living the same way, the same lifestyle that my parents gave me growing up. And at one point, I found myself living in a, I always call it a crack house, because there were people in there doing drugs. There was a lot of different rooms. It was a house with a lot of different rooms. Every room was rented out. It was roaches and mice and all types of crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, people were in there doing crazy things. Like, I slept with a Tonto. If you don't know what a Tonto is, it's a short sword. I had a Tonto and I had, was it a hammer? And both of those were very close to my bed, right? And I remember I had to break my door. I had to break my door down once to get in. So I had a 40-pound dumbbell that I used to work out with. And at night I put that behind my door. And that's, that was my door lock for a while because the door wasn't getting fixed. Anyway, all that to say, while I'm living there in this place, my mentality started to change. Things started to seem pretty bleak. I wasn't making money. I couldn't really afford, the rent. I'd have to borrow money to pay the rent. By the way, the rent was $150 a week. So what I'm saying, I couldn't afford to pay the rent, and it was $150 a week. Like, things weren't good. I started selling stuff out of the trunk of my car. You know what I'm saying? Like, you start thinking differently. Like, I ain't got it. He might got it. I'm gonna go get it. People think that I know we're talking about depression, but I'm going somewhere. People think that you're too high up to fall. You're not. Like, your circumstances can change and you could find yourself in a very precarious situation with a completely different mindset, people that you was judging not too long ago. And if you stay in that place long enough, you get depressed. And I really think that there's a lot of us walking around here that are depressed, and we just don't know that we're depressed because we can't afford healthcare to go and talk to a therapist and be like, oh yeah, it was like, it's a privilege just to have the money to pay for a therapist and tell them and have them tell you that you're depressed.
Yeah.
And to be able to afford Zoloft or whatever, the bouncing ball. Remember the little bouncing ball commercial?
You lost me.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
To be able to sit on a couch and talk to a therapist, like, that costs money that a lot of people don't have. And and when you're walking out your door every day and you're worried about, you might get robbed, you might get shot. Your man's, what I'm saying, like, just got shot. Kids, what I'm saying, single parent households just struggle. Like, you don't have time to really reflect about how you're feeling and think about, like, could I be depressed? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think about, all this is talking about depression, y'all. I think about my parents. My dad, when he was a kid in Trinidad, sleeping in a burlap sack, a burlap sugar sack on a wooden floor. That's how he grew up. And he worked and he came here and he made a better life for his kids. I don't think my dad was, thinking about his feelings. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if podcasting existed back then, I don't think he'd be doing a podcast about mental wellness. You know why we can do that? Because he did that and he had to suppress all of his emotions and deal with whatever he was dealing with and whatever trauma he was. And he couldn't unpack that. it was just packed. That suitcase just came with him, and he might still be carrying it around with him unpacked for all I know. But because I don't have to worry about those things and live the life where I didn't have to worry about those things for the most part, I get to look inward. I get the luxury of being able to say, how am I feeling? How am I feeling about this? And that's my point about class and race and depression, is that when you're living a life where you're more concerned about survival than you are about your feelings, it's like you just do what you got to do. You don't have time to talk about your feelings. So how could you ever have a moment to, process all of this stuff? You don't. And so, yes, I'm very convinced, this is my theory, that Black people are walking around here depressed and hurting on a whole nother level. And we will continue to for a very long time. I will say this, and then I'll shut up, because I know we're well over 30 minutes at this point. But this is an important topic, so I'm glad we're talking about it. I do think that it's great that in social media, there's so much mental health, and mental wellness stuff going on. There's so many people talking about it. And there's information that maybe isn't like the best, like this, we're not experts, what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
Like we're giving our stories and our lived experiences in hopes that you can connect with it. And that if it resonates with you, maybe you'll go and, talk to somebody. But whatever, it's better that there's just people talking about it, even people like us who aren't licensed therapists, so that there can just be a conversation. That I think is really, really awesome. I'm super happy to see that. And the stigma is starting to be, like broken down, where it's like, all right, you don't, yeah, men can cry too. Yeah, I need to talk to somebody. And it's not, oh, you soft, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's a punk, man up. Like, no, people are starting to come around and be like, I'll be soft if that's what you think. But, I'm going to go talk to somebody. I'm going to set boundaries. You know what I'm saying? Like healthy boundaries. I'm going to, join a group and have and watch Products of Circumstance. I don't want to ramble too much, but I am happy to see that, things are starting to change and that, are people starting to think more about mental wellness as part of their overall wellness, because it's totally connected. All right, that's it. I'm done.
Nah, that's a beautiful rapper, brother. Absolutely. But yeah, sorry. Actually, I'm not apologizing for this.
Don't.
That was the topic of the day. Definitely need to be said. People need to talk more. People need to care just a little more. Just a little more. Just care just a little more.
A little goes a long way.
It goes a long way. Sir, I do have to run around now.
I know. All right, man. Listen, I love you.
Love you too, brother.
And we love all y'all. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share with somebody on their journey. Peace.
Peace.